So in Miro, and also it might be helpful for the folks who might be watching the recording to visit the Miro board. I'll make sure that there's a link to that. I will make a short link for you, lwm.events/Oslo. I will make sure you'll be able to find this later. Just making a note to do that. All right, so in the welcome section of the board, we've got all of our sticky notes. We've got folks distributed from left to right, left being completely new to Wardley mapping, right being Simon Wardley or an expert. I'm not really sure where I am. I'll probably put myself somewhere in between. I think I'm an expert student at this point, just learning all the hard things as you all are learning and trying to help everyone learn the things that I learn as I learn them. So excellent. We've got a nice healthy mix of complete beginners and folks who are excited to sort of learn some things. I'm surprised that some of you aren't experts. I feel like I've known at least some of you to do more mapping than most. So here we are. Excellent. So we're not going to do anything too formal today. We're actually just going to do some mapping and learn some lessons the hard way about Wardley mapping facilitation. And so if you'll join me to the right, there's a big section called proposals. And here's the question I'll pose to the group. What would you like to map? Can be anything, can be big, small, something really tactical or technical, or it could be something really strategic. It could be something really messy. I've Wardley mapped things like mental health, for example, or change management. I've also made maps of websites. There's a huge range of potential things. And this could be, let's try to illustrate something specific, or it could be, let's explore something that we don't know the answers to yet. So if you can, add a sticky note to this proposal section and just suggest some things to map. And in chat, just give me a quick heads up if you don't know what's possible to map, and so it's really hard to suggest. Just say, that's me, or hello. Yes, however, life, the universe, and everything. What's tricky is that I will take you up on that kind of suggestion. So you better be careful what you propose. Now, I will say that Wardley mapping, you've probably heard that before you talk about solutions, it's helpful to talk about problems. And what I like to say is that Wardley mapping is what you do before you talk about problems. It's you're talking about messes. What mess are we in? And how can we go from that mess to define the problems that are in the mess and then talk about the solutions we might put towards those problems? So what messes would you be interested in mapping? People are still typing, so I'll keep stalling. And of course, if anyone's like totally lost or frustrated at any point, just raise your hand, wave at me, or say something in chat. I'm watching chat closely. And I will absolutely make sure we get your needs addressed. Now, the other thing I think about with Wardley mapping is one of the parts of it, evolution, has to do with capitalism. And so one of the, if it helps with giving you ideas, any situation, any system that is taking place within the bounds of capitalism is important, it is valid. It can be individual experiences, so your own individual experiences in capitalism. It could be your team's experiences doing work. If you do nonprofit work or volunteering, even though that is a different way of doing labor, it's also valid because it's happening within us participating in a society that tends to be capitalistic. But it can also be public services, governments, things like that. in any scale, big or small. Okay, I'm going to say last call. I'm going to start a little timer, last 30 seconds to propose topics. I see we're slowing down, but 30 seconds and then we'll vote on these. And when we vote, you'll each get 30 seconds, or sorry, you'll get 3 votes, and you'll get to put those votes wherever you'd like. You could put 3 on the same thing. You could put, spread them out across a couple different topics, but okay, excellent. All right, so now I'm going to get the voting started here in Miro. We're going to vote on sticky notes. Done. Okay, everybody gets 3 votes. I'm going to give you 2 minutes to decide. And I've started the voting. And so to vote, all you have to do is click the little plus sign, or just click on the sticky note. You can also remove your vote if you accidentally vote on someplace, but put your 3 votes wherever you'd like. Could be 3 on the same thing, could be spread across a couple different topics.
How do I vote?
Does it let you click on the sticky note?
Okay, if I click on the sticky note, and then what's then?
I think you need to click on start voting in the upper right corner first.
Blue button.
Oh,
Blue button.
vote now
And-
there. Okay.
Yep.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Then you get a plus sign on every.
Oh, now I see all the pluses. Thank you.
Yay, thank you. I just learned something about what it's like to vote. So always helpful to see those little gaps in facilitation. You know, facilitation's hard. But thank you for helping. Okay, we've got about 35 seconds left or so. So get your final votes in. All right, 10 seconds left. Excellent. Okay. So if you look at the little, let's see, the thumbs up sign in the bottom left-hand, sort of the bottom toolbar, you can see a voting thumbs up icon. And so you can click on that to see the results. But I'm looking here and I see how to infect my org with Wardley mapping as a practice. So mapping how to infect Wardley mapping in an organization. Okay, interesting. And then tied with that is Agile Transformations. And so I'm going to use my authority, by the authority vested in me as the loudest person in the room right now. I'm going to suggest we start with Agile Transformations as a topic. And that way we get to, for the folks who want to understand mapping, we don't get too meta the first time around. We actually just get to work on something together. Okay, so the first topic is Agile Transformations. And if you'll all join me down below, right here. I'm just going to add a little sticky note off to the left here, just so we remember what we're doing. Agile Transformations. Okay. And what we're going to do is we're going to do something called mob mapping. Mob mapping is something that I learned from Jennifer Carlston, and she's at JD Carlston on Twitter. And we did a stream about that on YouTube the other week and learned how to do mob mapping for Wardley mapping. But how many of you have heard of mob programming before? Excellent. And mob programming, for those of you who are either super quiet or invisible or otherwise don't know what it is this idea of getting a bunch of people in a room and to sit down together and to work together to write code. And for Wardley mapping, it's kind of similar. It's, we all get together in a room and we work together to make maps. But it's not a free-for-all. It's not chaos. It's actually pretty structured. And Trond, that's exactly right. Yeah, there's another ensemble programming. It's probably a better word for it, ensemble mapping. Excellent. And in the version of this that we're going to do today, there are going to be some roles. And there will be a driver and a navigator. And each of these roles has a different job. And I guess what's implied is that there's the rest of the room. There's an audience. And the audience, in the version of this that we're going to do, the audience doesn't have to be quiet. The audience can speak up if they notice something. In fact, the audience is going to be very active in a discussion with the navigator. And what the driver is going to do is actually do the writing. The driver is going to put the sticky notes on the map. The driver is going to do the work of making sure that the ideas get onto the map itself. The navigator is going to lead the discussion. The navigator is going to tell the driver what to put on the map and perhaps lead the discussion with the audience. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to kind of take the first shot at being the navigator. So I'm going to be the navigator here on the first go around. But I need someone to help me. I need someone who could be a driver, or a scribe is another way to refer to this. Would anybody feel comfortable volunteering to be my my scribe, my navigator, or sorry, my driver? All you have to do is write sticky notes on the board.
I'll have a go.
Excellent, thank you. Okay, love it. So all you have to do is make sure that the things that we talk about as a group get recorded. And so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to make a decision about users. So again, our topic is Agile Transformations. And man, all right. No, not an easy topic, but let's start here. I'm going to make an opinionated just call right here that we're going to exercise extreme restraint. We're going to be very, very restrained in how we do this mapping process. And so pay attention to how this plays out. But I'm going to say that we can only have one user on our first go around. So step one in making a Wardley map is to identify who's being served by the situation. So Agile Transformations. I'm going to pose this out to the group. And you can either write a response in chat or you can unmute yourself and say hello. Who do you think is served by an Agile transformation? Who gets value from an Agile transformation? Yeah, speak up.
Hi, everyone. I'm Andreas. I'd say definitely the business stakeholders are an important user group there.
Business stakeholders, excellent. Does anyone feel really, really compelled to argue that we focus on a different user first? Or is it okay that we start with business stakeholders? Any objections?
I have the feeling that business stakeholders might be too general.
Ooh, okay.
Maybe scope it a little bit like customers or something like that.
What do you think, Andreas?
Yeah, that's a good point. I wasn't too much satisfied with that myself right now because it's not the kind of way of agile working, but it's the transformation to get there, right? And this is maybe a totally different perspective on the topic, right? It's not what we think of working agile, but how to get there, right? This is typically what this transformation means, how to get the whole company there to work in an agile way.
Okay, so
And
Kaz-
yeah,
Ka-
Then
Kaso,
maybe leadership.
all right, so make a decision. Who should we focus on first? What should we call them?
I'll write the alternatives that have been mentioned.
Okie doke. So business stakeholders is too generic, and so we've got customers versus leadership. Okay,
but who would be the customer in this case? This for me sounds a bit too generic.
Yeah, it's also a good point. So maybe leadership, as Andreas said, it's a transformation the organization does. So maybe it's the user's leadership.
But it's also important from which point of view are we describing this? Are we an agile coach that kind of are hired by a company to lead the agile transformation, at some point leave the organization again, or kind of as a coaching, as a coach? And then
so many good questions.
Then all of the company's employees are our customer, right? We have different customer groups, and maybe from this point of view, customer would be too generic, right? Because developers are our customers, UX people would be our customers, and business stakeholders, and maybe indirectly even the company's customers somehow, because in the end, typically this is what such an agile transformation is supposed to end up in, right? A better outcome, typically for the company's customers. So,
or a bigger trash fire. I'm not sure. Ule, what were you going to say?
No, I think like wait, I will. I think decision makers. They are some of the stakeholders here that are very important decision maker in the management, because if they don't make decisions, there won't be any agile transformation.
But the agile transformation won't work if it's done from the upside to the downside. If the whole team don't do it, the management can do everything, and it won't work.
Absolutely correct. So I'm gonna put my pseudo expert hat on right now, and I'm gonna say, here's the thing that you all need to know. All of this is true, and you have to pay attention to everyone if you want to have a comprehensive understanding of what the right move is. But you can't do it all at once. You have to start somewhere. So the important thing is to pick one and just go with it and get all the way through, and then add the next one in. And over time, you get more and more coverage. And the whole point is not to flip a switch and take care of everyone right away. The point is to start the journey towards making just a few more better decisions every day. Can you make 5% more better decisions? Okay, so I'm taking off my expert hat back into navigator mode. Excellent. Okay.
May I throw something in here? I have the feeling decision makers would be the most important, because without the right decisions, we are moving nowhere.
Okay, any objections to that?
Very hard to move. But the thing is, who are the decision makers? This is very often not too easy to find out. Sometimes even C-level kind of wants to make decisions, but for other reasons is kind of blocked. But we can come up with the example case here. Maybe typical higher level management can make a decision, and just assuming that from there this whole initiative started, then this is where decisions should be possible to be made. I would claim it's not too easy sometimes, but let's maybe simplify this a bit and assume the simplest thing.
Excellent. Okay.
A little suggestion. How about CMO level, like the customers or the product management side of it, the business side? Could that be one? Because I've seen contention there between what sort of the business or the CEOs type level wants and what sort of the product side wants. I'm guessing.
Sounds fine for me, as I would say they both can make important decisions. Maybe higher level regarding more general things, and what you mentioned more maybe what in this stage still is called project management, where decisions are made, because there we want to move away, right, more to a product or user-centric point of view. Yeah.
Okay.
Sounds
So
good.
I heard CMO. Is that Chief Marketing Officer, or Trond? Could you clarify?
Yes, correct.
Okay.
Oh, so maybe it's wrong term, but it is sort of the high-level market part of sort of the product part of the business. They're probably called different things in different places. Maybe I got the wrong
Okay.
chief level as well. But yeah.
Anna.
I have another suggestion. That is the CFO, because they are the money they are the money holders, and they are. I think they are the slowest to get on the agile train.
Doril?
Well, I was into the word agile transformation and what is it that is going to be transformed. And I think it's probably the organization that is the user of an agile transformation. And some of the other stuff that's been mentioned is stakeholders or things we have to do, but who is the user of what is it we are going to transform in an agile way? Well, that's probably the organization first, and then we have a lot of outcomes of that.
Excellent. Geir?
Yeah, just a reflection. So I'll take off my driver's hat and make a reflection. What I liked about decision makers is that it's general and it applies over the entire organization. So I was going to go for that fully, but then I thought part of what's going to change as part of an agile transformation is actually who makes the decisions. So that might make for a more complex and complicated map. So that might make a good second map. that's the contribution.
Okay, so I'm going to state that the most important thing for us to do is pick something, and just about anything. So if we say C-suite, as Geir has, and I'm sorry, I am butchering names. I was calling Ole like Ollie a long time ago. I'm so sorry. But like, so let's C-suite. Is anyone going to be really, really upset with me if we choose C-suite? Okay, we'll start there.
What is a C-suite?
Any person with chief in their title.
Okay, oh, yeah. Okay,
Yep.
that understand.
I have a quick question.
Yep.
So I've been running an agile transformation in a sales organization.
Mm-hmm.
And I've found that most salespeople are incredibly agile to begin with, but they are not methodological, right? So
Sure. Yep.
Sort of the reverse. Most IT people are incredibly methodological, but not very agile. So I've sort of found this dichotomy. And what I've discovered is that through the sales life cycle, if it's a commercial company, but non-commercial government type entities or public, they have mission and fundraising. So it can be very similar. That if you apply more agility there, you find that it opens up a lot more agile opportunities in the organization, because you have advocates, and people in sales tend to be extremely strong advocates because their direct compensation
Okay.
is.
And just to check in real quick, like, is this going to help us decide which user to focus on or which need to focus
exactly, because you could prioritize sales, example being sales fundraising, which would then prioritize the necessary success in whatever the organization produces for its customers or its mission.
One thing I would say to that, just taking off my navigator hat for a moment, is that in general, it's really, really helpful to notice where things are already thriving and succeeding whenever you're doing transformations. And I think being aware of that and working from those areas of success, absolutely helpful. But now what I want to do, putting my navigator hat back on, is to focus on needs of the C-suite. So extreme restraint, again, is the rule of the day. And so I'm going to open up the question, what does the C-suite need? What is one thing that they need in the context of an agile transformation? Any guesses?
Be more competitive.
Ooh,
Again.
okay.
I mean, provide more value to their customers or whoever their customers are, basically.
That is what the shiny marketing material would have you believe, isn't it?
I
Well,
think
without
they need
that-
control.
Control.
Yeah, Elon Musk recently said better products, right? All those MBAs are screwing up. A lot of businesses should focus on your product first and the quality of your product.
Oof.
So maybe
Wow.
better
So better
product. But
products. Okay.
How about efficiency is the correct word, right? So better outcomes for less input or whatever you want to call it.
I think I
Excellent.
would say that they need a good strategy, because it depends on the strategy what your product is. It might be that it's cheaper than everyone else. It might be that the quality is better than everyone else. It depends on the strategy of the suite, the organization.
Lower
Okay.
risk, maybe.
And
Lower
Geir
risk.
is doing an excellent job keeping up with all of this. Lovely. Okay.
Engage employees.
Ooh. I'm starting to notice that there's a lot of things inside this bucket of agile transformation. It's almost like people are just adding their own meanings to it. Yeah, I mean, that's half the problem. Okay, I'm going to set the timer, 30 more seconds. Any other needs?
Survive.
I bet C-suites care about survival. Yep.
one quick question. Should we stay that generic or should we set an example scenario for an example company?
I'm going to be super taking off my navigator hat here. I'm going to say it doesn't matter. I think we're going to get through this process and it'll figure itself out.
Okay.
Give us an example, Andreas.
No, it's just thinking, because otherwise the capabilities most probably will stay very generic, I would say. And with a concrete scenario, it might be more concrete what are the needs of the needs and so on. And otherwise it's very generic. But I'm totally fine. It was just a suggestion.
Let's see what happens. Because I'm going to claim that we can get to the fundamental nature of reality.
No, it sounds even better. Yeah.
Yeah, and maybe that's not useful, but we'll find out. We'll see. Okay, excellent. So what I'm going to do now, and just to sort of speed things along, I'm going to do another voting session here. And we're going to pick one. We're going to pick one need, and this is all about restraint. I know it's so hard because there are all these needs and they're all important, but we've got to pick just a couple of them. So I'm going to give you all 4 votes this time and 1 minute to vote.
Ben?
Yes.
Before we vote, could we have a quick clarification if there is any things we don't understand about the notes? I have one, the one that says be more competitive. Are we talking about increase our capacity for competition or compete better with our competitors? Or is it that we need to up our game and start being so static?
Could the person who proposed that clarify? Does anyone remember who said be more competitive?
Maybe it means the same.
Oh, I said that. Sorry.
Market leadership.
But I somehow missed the question. I was distracted for a moment. Sorry.
Right. Could you please clarify what be more competitive is meant to mean?
Oh yeah, you might realize that you're getting behind the competition. It's this early successor thing where you had success, and a lot of times Kodak was brought up as an example, right? Yep. And then you realize, for whatever reasons, maybe you're not too sure yet, for which reasons, do you realize you're behind the competition more and more, and you need to be more competitive. And you heard of this about this agile thing and agile transformation. And now, yeah, you think your need is to be more competitive, and that this is kind of this agile transformation is one way to get more competitive again.
Yeah, I listed market leadership, so maybe that fuses that together.
Very nice.
I have another question on the posted product. I mean, any company we talking about that goes through agile transformation already has a product probably, or kind of a service, kind of a product. So what's exactly the need here? I need to understand before I vote. Well,
I might have miscaptured what Andreas was saying at that one.
Was it mine or was it?
Yeah,
It could have been. It was between the quality and product here.
Yeah,
So
I think
the product one.
So it's product leadership, basically.
yeah, I think it's more about like product leadership, like how to
No.
develop products, how to.
I simply meant better products,
Okay.
product improvement,
Okay.
and product quality. For me, it would be okay if quality means specifically product. Yeah, it's better products in whatever way, typically by increasing quality.
Excellent.
I see.
Yeah, and what I'll note too here, so taking off my navigator hat for a moment, we don't actually need any particular need to be here. What we actually want is just to find some place to start. And what we're going to do in the next 10 minutes or so is going to be really, really fast. And what you'll find is that very quickly you can get through a cycle of this, just boom, boom, boom. And then you can come back and iterate and you can go, oh, well, we were using the wrong definition of this need. Let's fix that and then do it again. And so it doesn't matter if any of these are poorly defined, because we can always come back to it later. So putting the navigator hat back on, we've got our list of potential things to vote for. And I'm going to give you 1 minute to vote. You have 4 votes. You can vote, put your votes wherever you want. Voting is started. Which need would you like to see us explore?
Not able to vote, actually. Is it just me?
I can vote.
Okay.
Do you have a start voting option?
I've clicked it.
Oh no.
Yeah, I've clicked it too, but pressing the plus doesn't do any.
I needed to click some more. Found it now.
Oh, problem is just more clicking. Okay, final seconds, final countdown.
I wasn't able to vote, I think.
Oh, I'm sorry. Sometimes I'm still learning how these tools work. So
Next round.
next round, next time. Fair enough. Okay. All right. So what we're going to do is we've got 11 votes for better products. That seems like a really good one to start with. The runner-up was market leadership. So let's focus in on better products and maybe put the rest of these needs off to the side for now. All right. And thank you to my very excellent driver for doing this so well. All right. So we've got the C-suite needs better products. Okay, now we're going to do almost zero discussion. I only want a few suggestions, and I'm going to take the first 5 that I hear. What organizational capabilities are needed to produce better products?
Client engagement.
You need a vision.
So I heard client engagement. I heard having a vision.
User
That's 2.
feedback.
User feedback. That's 3.
Analytics.
I'm sorry, could we hear that again?
Better testers.
So better testers, and then what was the other one?
Analytics.
Analytics.
Okay, we have no one doing product development here.
Oh, well.
So,
And this is, okay, taking the navigator head off. Doesn't matter. Like, what we're trying to do is get a foothold. Like, we don't actually have to have a good model to make better decisions.
that's fair. That's fair.
Yeah, we're gonna get better. We're gonna make this get even better. Yeah, Ola.
Yeah, so you haven't said it, but the whole point is that this is iterative, right? So
Yes.
it's a bit about getting traction.
Yep.
So we can revisit it several times, right? Yeah.
And you'll notice too that I'm shifting which facilitation method I use in order to get us further along. I'm noticing that opening it up for discussion just slows us down. And what I really want to emphasize to you all as you facilitate in your own contexts, getting it right is a problem for tomorrow. Getting it on paper and having a really crappy first draft is the problem for today. And you can get through this in 15 minutes if you are practiced, but obviously we all have different backgrounds, different assumptions, so it's a little harder. So, okay, excellent. Now, to my lovely driver, could I ask you to do me the favor? Could you select everything that we have in the lists here, the C-suite, better products, vision, better testers, etc. Select all of that and make a copy of it and put that copy in the section to the right in the value chain. Excellent. So, and then we just need the C-suite and the better products.
I'll happen.
Thank you. Okay, and now we have a simple task at our hand. Don't step on the driver's shoes or toes.
My mistake.
No backseat drivers, please.
So, and just as a side note, usually in mob mapping, we'd rotate roles. And so maybe after each iteration through the map, we would rotate roles. And so a different person would drive or a different person would navigate and so on. For now, we'll just see how far we get with these current roles, unless you get tired of driving, in which case maybe Toto can help. Excellent. Okay, so we've completed step one. We have lists, a list of users, a list of needs, and a list of capabilities. We've exercised restraint, so we only have one user, one need, and 5 capabilities. All right, excellent. Now we need to draw relationships. So in Wardley mapping, the thing that turns the lists into a value chain is relationships, and the relationships are dependency. So let's add some relationships. I have a suspicion that the relationships largely work from top to bottom. So C-suite depends on better products. So could I ask you to draw a line, Geir, between C-suite and better products? Excellent. Okay. And then feel free to sort of lay things out differently if you need more space. I'm gonna say as the navigator, let's have the naive assumption here starting out that better products directly depends on each of these 5 capabilities. So if you could draw a line to each of those 5 capabilities, we're just gonna make that tentative decision. It's probably very wrong. Excellent, excellent. Okay. Awesome. Okay, so and then could you maybe drag those 5 down a little bit, just so we have a little bit more space? Awesome. Okay. This is going to be wrong, but the way this works is if you have a value chain that's correctly described or correctly kind of articulated, there's a little phrase that you can put on each relationship just like this. And you should be able to say the system as a sentence. The C-suite depends on better products. Better products depends on client engagement. Better products depends on user feedback, and so on. Does that make sense to everyone? Excellent.
Yes.
Okay. So I almost guarantee you that this is wrong. This value chain is incorrect. It is not describing the way things really work. But what we're going to do is we're going to take it as our iteration 0, and we're going to turn it into a Wardley map. So this value chain which is the capabilities, the user needs, and the user described in terms of dependency, what needs what else. This value chain, we're going to turn this into a Wardley map. So Geir, could I ask you to copy this whole thing over to the section to the right, the Wardley map? Awesome. Okay. And now what we're going to do is we're going to give the horizontal space meaning. And the meaning that we're going to give it is something from Wardley mapping called evolution. And who here knows about evolution? Who here's played with evolution in the Wardley mapping thing? Geir, could I actually ask you to maybe take a quick shot at explaining what it is?
Yeah, sure, if I may jump in. Or
oh, sorry, I was talking to Geir, but that's
yeah,
Andreas,
sure. No,
that's fine too.
Go ahead.
Yeah, it's many things, but it has to do with how well we know what the product is and how stable it is. To the left, you will have things coming into being, and as they evolve, the level of certainty about what the product is increases. So we know more about it. The risk reduces, and you have a more stable product. So less change and less change in requirements. And as you move to the far right, then all the product differentiation is actually gone. So what you're delivering is the same more or less from instance to instance, but you might still compete. So
Excellent.
Some examples of that being water or electricity or power.
That's perfect. And if you look down below the Wardley map, there's this big, horrible table. It's kind of terrifying. And this is the table that Simon's put together to describe all of the characteristics of evolution that he's identified. And my favorite is down here at the bottom, failure. And so what you can do is from stage to stage, you can look at how each characteristic occurs in each stage. And so like in stage 1, stuff is failing all the time. It's tolerated. Like obviously it's going to fail. Like nobody's ever done this thing before. Whereas in stage 2, like, well, it's unsurprising that it's failing, but like, I'm kind of disappointed. I kind of wish it had worked. And then in stage 3, we're not tolerating failure anymore. This thing has to work. It has to be improved until it's reliable. And then in stage 4, failure is surprising. It almost never happens. And so we can kind of assume that it's always going to work. And so you could spend all day learning all these different characteristics and seeing how they're different. But what I'm going to say is for what we're going to do now, we're not going to worry about getting it right. We're just going to take a decent guess. And so I'm going to rely on everyone here in the group watching and kind of listening. We're going to go part by part and take a quick guess at which stage each of these things is in. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to either put a number in the chat, 1, 2, 3, or 4. Actually, that's the way we're going to do it. We're going to do a number in chat, 1, 2, 3, or 4. And so the first thing we're going to do is better products. So I'm going to type the word better. I almost typed butter products. That's different. Better products. I'm typing that in chat. Now, on the count of 3, put it in stage 1, gamble, 2, a decent bet, 3, a user demand, or 4, the cost of doing business. Don't overthink it. On the count of 3, type 1, 2, 3, or 4 in chat. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Type your answer. 1, 2, or 3, or 4. Excellent. Okay, so I see a lot of 2s. I see some 3s. Geir, make the call. put it like between 2 and 3, let's say. So better products. Okay, excellent. Perfect. Now we're done with better products. And we can move on to the next thing. Now, this is going to be wrong. We could spend all day negotiating and disagreeing about why something is placed. What I will say is that whenever we see really interesting differences, that's a really good sign that we should dig into that and ask some questions. So Katya putting 4 would be an excellent opportunity for a conversation. So we could dig into that and we could go deeper. But for now, we're going to move on. Katja, I see you. That's a very important discussion to have. We're going to move on, though, just for the purposes of today and saving time. Okay, we're going to do the same thing, but with vision. Does vision feel like a stage 1 thing, like Genesis, high failure, or a stage 4 thing, somewhere between 1, 2, 3, and 4? Vision. We're going to make a call on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3, or 4. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Make the call. Where's vision? Okay, I see way more 2s than anything else. So, Geir, if you wouldn't mind putting it in stage 2. And again, there's some interesting differences. Some people put 1s. I'd love to have that conversation later, though. Analytics. Someone type analytics. Let's think about analytics. Okay, what's analytics like? We're going to make the call on the count of 3. So is it a 1, 2, 3, or 4? 1, 2, 3. Go. Woo! Excellent. Okay, next we're going to do better testers. Think about testing. What's testing like? Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3, make the call. Oof. I love it. Okay. User feedback. Think about user feedback. Okay, make the call. 1, 2, 3, boom. Okay, I see more 3s than 2s. Awesome. Thank you. And what's the last one? Client engagement. Okay, think about client engagement. What's that like? Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3, make the call. I love it. Okay. Oh, that's a tough one. But Gary, you're doing exactly your job. You're putting it somewhere, roughly where people are saying it. Excellent. Thank you. Okay, we've made a Wardley map. All right. Does anyone think this is right? I don't think it's right.
Nope.
And that's okay. All this is doing is placeholding a starting point for a deeper discussion. And here's the truth of the matter is if you iterate and iterate and iterate, eventually we get more right. But right now there's no model. We're calling a model into being. We're making it happen. We're calling it into existence. And now we're going to have some discussions that are going to help us refine the way that we think about this. So join me to the right of the map, the opportunity prompts. And Katja, I love the comment. If it's not right, it was really fun to do it that way. Yep. We want to make this fun. We want to make understanding the world that we're in fun, because then we'll do it all the time and we'll constantly be asking questions. And the more fun we can have, the more we'll have the energy to do this kind of exploration. And as we have the more energy to do the exploration, then we can have that energy to spend on more precise, more accurate maps, let's say. Okay, this is a big old table. It's based on Simon Wardley's book. And basically all it is a set of prompts to help us find obvious opportunities in the map, to help us identify big challenges that we might have been missing out on, important questions that we need to ask, important conversations that we need to go have. Just in general, sometimes it's like obvious actions we should just go take. The whole point of mapping is to make new decisions and take action, right? And so the extent to which a map just helps us have an intellectual conversation and it never results in action, it's basically a waste of time. So let's start with the first prompt. And actually, what I'm going to suggest is could we rotate roles? Could I ask someone to lead us in a conversation and take on the navigator role? And all you have to do is just basically read the prompt and hold the space for the conversation. Does anyone feel comfortable taking that on? Replacing
sure.
me?
I can do it.
Andreas, excellent, thank you. And then could someone else relieve Geir of driving? Thank you, Geir. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And what the driver will do now is just add annotations, add little notes to the map, and maybe move stuff around. Does anyone feel comfortable taking that on? Pretty please. Nope. Okay. Well, I'll do it then. I like driving anyway.
Okay. Then
Andreas, the floor is yours.
Yeah, let's go on. So kind of implicitly, some of the opportunities we started with, right? To ask the questions, who are our users and what are their needs? And we established some kind of communication, used some terms. I would say also kind of part of these opportunities, but we started with that. And now, yeah, there's this chance or opportunity of reducing bias. And I'll read it real quickly. We are biased in how we approach this capability compared to others. If so, is that valuable or problematic? If we treat a component like it's in stage 2, while the rest of the world assumes it's stage 4, what do they know what we don't? So in other words, yeah, let's try to find out, are we on the same page regarding where we put this? Or I guess now we could have a little bit more conversation about this because we already voted. So I would say based on the votes, this is some kind of positioning, but there specifically the question, how does the rest of the world see it? So in our case, our competition, right? Are they doing something different? But I just, should we go kind of and apply these immediately, or should I go just through them? And
the way I like to do it, and this is just my opinion, as a supposed expert beginner, I like to start with one prompt and to go through each part of the value chain and kind of like sit with each part, like, ooh, better products. Okay, what's that like? Okay, once I have that in my mind, are we treating this differently than others? Okay. And kind of go one by one, just like that.
Yeah. So then open question. I mean, I would say better products. I have the feeling if competition that treats it kind of more to the left, more to Genesis, they might have kind of more opportunities on the market because they say, hey, if our products are better in a more Genesis way, then because we want to have products that are that good that it's something completely new. In best case, it wasn't there before, and this brings up sales or something. But that's just my feeling. So, what does the rest say?
I just want to mention from the chat that we have responses spanning 2, 3, and 4. So we're actually only missing 1. So that might be an interesting conversation to have first before we check out what the rest of the world is thinking, align on what we ourselves think. So of course, I can start. It will depend on what kind of products we are producing. So some of those products might be legacy, or no, I mean that they are in the product space. Some of them might be a commodity, but as a general rule, we should perhaps agree on: do we produce something that's customized per client, or do we deliver a service that's undifferentiated? Before we move on.
Yeah, that's a good point. It depends on what kind of product it is. If we're producing electricity, then obviously it's a commodity. Kind of the canonical example of something that is a utility most of the time is power. And if we're kind of a power plant, then maybe this is not directly our product, and we would rather talk about better customer service, or how kind of this yearly reaching the meters thing could be improved, smart meters and all of that. So we would need to go into more detail and find out, yeah, what is the product. So okay, then maybe move on. And product is this broader spectrum, yeah.
Yeah, I have a little question though, because it doesn't say product, it says better products. Is that a catch?
I think it is. And that's the reason why I'm missing something in Genesis.
Yeah,
because are we looking to improve what we already have? Or are we looking to introduce new and better products? Two different questions, then.
Because the need is better products, right? So where's that need situated here? Are we, yeah, I'm just curious.
I'm just taking a note here. Improve existing products versus introducing new and better products. Those are two different things.
Yeah, that's good. Then maybe the improve existing products is right to the introduce new and better products, I would say. Because new products, I mean, implicitly sounds like should be more to the left, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll put it over here. Does that seem right?
Yes. Perhaps even.
Okay, if you're fine with that, maybe
it could be even further apart. Because existing products, if you're a startup, that's another ballgame. But since this is a transformation, and you normally have a lot of products today, but you also work on creating new products. So, and I think also improve existing products should be on to the other side, Nelly.
Like this way?
No, other way.
This way.
Yeah.
Oh.
I disagree with that, because by my understanding, once we move that far to the right, we are removing too much of the differentiation. And if we want to improve the products and still have them seen as products, we need to differentiate.
I think
but
that
my understanding might be wrong.
On what improving existing products is.
I was about to say, I think that can differ a lot, probably also based on the space you are operating in, right? If you're improving the product that is selling electricity, that's completely different than improving the product of AI machine learning offering, right? I guess.
As a service.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I would say for the sake of this example here, imagine it really is a product according to this language here. So it should be kind of in 3-ish space. Otherwise, I would say it's not too interesting because, yeah, it's power. I mean, we would be very surprised if this would fail. It should never fail. It should be stable and basically nothing to improve about it anymore, other than maybe products around this.
Yeah, then I have a question for you, Andreas.
Like mentioned before. So I would say, yeah, if we talk about products, then not more to the right, or we should differentiate the exact product.
Yeah, a question for the navigator. The box we're moving now, improve existing products, is a need. So it needs to be placed in the right place as a need, not as the products that we're actually improving.
You could write improved existing products.
Or maybe does a C-suite need improved products or the practice of improving products? And also, Andreas, this is where like your decision as a navigator to use a concrete example versus going abstract when I was the navigator is a useful like distinction, because then it helps us answer questions like this. The other thing to keep in mind too is to time box the discussion. And so one thing that you can do is every 5 minutes as a navigator, you can say, hey, could we do a quick thumbs up, thumbs down? Do people want to keep talking about this component, or do they want to move on to the next component? And so there's an option that you have in your pocket to do that at any point in time.
Okay, I would suggest to move on if there are no complaints. I'm quite okay with where it is right here, and rather I would say let's talk about how the rest of the world sees the other needs in the value chain that we have mapped out here.
Thumbs up.
And I would say the need is just improved existing products, and the category is sufficient because we were on this more generic, more abstract level so far with the whole topic. So I'd say we can imagine what this is in the example of power and other products around it, or yeah, you could think of other examples. And I would move on and go to vision, which is in and of itself a very broad term, because all of this could be seen as business strategy vision. So that Wardley mapping is all about this more shared understanding of vision. But yeah, what do you think that the rest of the world, our competition, treats vision like? More of to the left, to the genesis, or more to the right?
If you ask Elon Musk, it will be very much that side.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. Yeah.
Interesting sort of thought about vision. So I think vision is an interesting one because I think you will find people placing it basically at any point in the scale. You have some people who will basically rent or hire consultants to develop their visions, which basically means you're sort of buying it as a product, right? You're sort of buying someone to create your vision statement. And then you have other people. I personally would say that a vision is like something unique for every single organization that they need to develop themselves. But you can sort of find that whole spectrum being used in the world today.
Kind of buying it sounds like you could use the business strategy generator that Simon mentioned years ago.
So just use the blast.
But I mean, I would also argue that there are several organizations that are, at least today, like surviving and thriving as an organization that do that. So I think it's easy for us to sort of say it's wrong or whatever, but I will say that you will see organizations that do that actually thrive. So it's hard to say that it's the wrong way of doing it.
But I think that they look at it as unique. We can have an idea on how it's created, but I think the business don't want to say that our vision is the same as somebody else's, no matter how it's built. So I think they will look at it as unique, but we can have arguments on how it's made.
But how often does it actually end up looking like someone else's?
Yeah, but I don't know. If a business says our vision is the same as our competitors, I don't know how many of those you find that will actually think or say that. I think I don't know, the way you look at it, you think it's unique for your organization.
Yeah. So what we heard so far, I would say clearly we would be better off putting it more to the left, because it seems like
I think you should stay, because you need to have something that is going ahead of the time here, so maybe a couple of years. You work for that for a couple of years, and it doesn't need to be too concrete. It could be more. At least it's I think if it goes all the way over, then it's maybe not possible unless you are nearly Elon Musk.
I agree.
I agree with Ann-Christine as well. For me, it's closely linked to purpose, and that means it's going to change, and it's related to the context, so it's customized. So I think it's where it needs to be.
Okay, yeah. Sounds good, and very important to share our understandings if not the most important part. Okay, then let's move on to the next, to client engagement.
And Andreas, maybe
think?
would you like to try a different prompt too? Like maybe instead of reducing bias, we could do something, I don't know, something else that's interesting. What interests
sure.
you?
Build alliances sounds interesting.
Ooh.
So do we have friends in the global market who also need this capability? Can we work together to make this capability better? I think this is a good point. Regardless of what products that you build, thinking about alliances, or it's not in this list, but the opposite, I guess would be to attack, or would that be too much kind of moved forward? But yeah, let's first kind of consider maybe better testers.
Okay, so we're looking at better testers.
Who came up with this? Maybe
that was me.
so if we have kind of better testers, yeah, who else could give us some synergy in the market if we build alliances regarding better testers?
Did you say synergy?
Yeah.
Sorry, buzzwords. I can't help but giggle. It's fair though. It's a real word and it does mean things. And you're right. It means exactly what you said. Anyway, sorry. Can't help myself.
I mean, yeah, it is kind of a win-win situation to work, to make this better.
You're totally right.
But there is something I don't understand there, because when we are going to put them in the Genesis custom build product or commodity, or then go them over there, I don't really understand why, because like number one is for me a little more chaotic and very far-fetched, but the other one is very traditional. Am I off completely off here, or am I right, or what?
Not too sure if I got you.
No, the thing is that if I'm going to put, I put a number on it, the better testers, for instance, and I think it's quite okay there it is, because it's not very much innovative about testing, and I'm a tester, so I know, but it's not necessarily very traditional either. And that's how I think about it. Is that the right way to think about it? That's all the question.
I have a couple of questions to kind of dig into that. I don't know what the answer to your question is, but better testers, we could do that by testing in new ways. Because I think that testing as part of product delivery, that's at the very least, it needs to be there. So it could actually be commoditized. So it's a product or it's a commodity, but thinking new in terms of how we do testing, that might give us better testers. So the question is really to qualify, what do we need? What do we have in mind when we say that in order to either introduce new and better products, or in order to improve existing products, we need to have better testers.
Yeah.
Or maybe even split it up, kind of.
I think we should.
Better
I think we should, because the needs are separate.
The testers, kind of the human aspect of it, it's just one part, but there's also testing practices, testing tooling.
Yeah, methodology.
All the skills behind.
Yeah.
Indeed.
But what's the whole point when you do testing? At the end of the day, you're trying to either achieve a contract internally or a contract externally based on quality. That was
the testing is about measuring quality.
No, I understand that, but what's the purpose in that? It's to achieve a contract with somebody.
But to survive as a company, you have to decide which amount of money you spend into this, and to achieve that contract. And
Exactly.
the better you get the methodology, I never can say that word.
That's okay.
The methods, the better you earn money without spending it on testing.
Well, only if it's in the spirit of that contract.
Sounds
No,
like we
but in
could
general-
dive really deep in there, and I would say let's make a cut and maybe stay with just better testing or testing in general. And
This was my proposal, so I think better testers came out wrong. I think it should be better testing.
okay, and I think that the discussions alone was worth it, but maybe pivot a bit around it, and let's see what opportunities maybe will suit this better, like dispose of liability. Is this capability toxic to us? Should we really be spending our time or limited time and energy on it? Do we need to overcome our own internal resistance of disposing it? And maybe not the testing itself, but there might be some regression testing going on manually. And we know, okay, we spend quite some resources, and maybe it's not the money, but the time, and time is money, and we need to go to a more automated approach. Maybe
also
something like
about
this.
reputation.
Yeah, I have a request. Could we decide whether we're now working with improved existing products or introducing new ones? Because for introducing new ones, I would really like to have a focus around validating assumptions and verifying fitness for purpose. Whereas in the other case, we would need to have a lot more focus around regression. Two very different needs.
And
Then let's stick to the new and better products. Maybe just say new products, or better than products that existed before, right? In a sense, it's new and better than something that existed.
And you can also connect it to the client engagement and the user feedback, because and combine testing with that. So if you're talking about innovation and on how you test, that could be a more like a Genesis way of thinking about it. How do you combine those two with your new product?
Okay, I would say let's go to another example of the opportunities. Maybe the second one, use appropriate methods, because this sounds quite generic. It's a thing where it is said that in the stages 1 or 2, should rather use agile methods. To make it short, in stage 3, kind of in the middle, more lean, and towards the right, stage 4, kind of this minimizing variation, and Six Sigma is a topic. Do you think this would be valuable to ask ourselves regarding the specific needs? Are we using appropriate methods? I guess vision could be interesting. How to talk about vision, but maybe not the best.
What about client engagement?
Yeah, we didn't talk about client engagement yet. So yeah, what are your thoughts about client engagement regarding appropriate methods? And maybe not those, maybe more related to software development, but in a more general sense, kind of, do we use appropriate methods regarding our client engagement? How we are doing it now, and how could it be better? And this is, I guess, where we could also kind of look at a couple of, or more than one opportunity, kind of how is the rest of the world doing it? And maybe kind of then come to maybe our methods are not right anymore, as a conclusion, maybe if we look around to the world.
If I take my driver hat off just for a moment, I'm pretty sure I worked at a place that had Six Sigma in charge of client engagement.
Ooh.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think having a client advisory board centric approach to client engagement, it tends to be sort of accepted as one of the best practices, because the client has a front row seat in, and they get to have this 360 view of all the activities going on in their name. So creating a CAB type model.
Is that the case across both established and stable products,
Absolutely,
as well as emerging ones?
Absolutely. You look at Oracle or SAP or GE building power systems. The CAB model it's actually, you could argue, more dominant with existing products, because you need feature prioritization and continuous improvement on an ongoing basis. Whereas in new product development in MPD, it tends to be sort of your market entry customers that are your priority. So the CAB over time gains the authority ultimately in the product decisions, because they link back to the budget, right? I mean, they are the payer ultimately.
Yeah, again, I follow that for established products, but the examples that you mentioned aren't necessarily the ones that spring to mind when I think of innovation.
CABs have tremendous innovation because.
Oh yes, but the companies you mentioned, sorry.
Well, they do. I mean, look, if you don't have the power systems of GE the last 60 years, you don't get a lot of power optimization that we have in the world. So, I mean, I think we don't associate them with being cool, sexy consumer tech companies, but I think they generate.
But what if you talk about Kodak then?
I'm sorry.
Kodak.
Kodak. I guess they had existing products and they tried out some new ones, and then they ditched them because the customer feedback was maybe not right, and then they lost it all.
Yeah, I mean, I think Kodak had a more consumer-centric business model, so I think that's higher risk when that's your industries. When
I
that's
would think the opposite. Advisory board centric, than the customer centric.
No. I said CAB, Customer Advisory Board. That's what they.
Oh yeah. Okay, yeah.
No,
yeah,
I didn't say advisory board.
Oh no, I'm sorry. I misunderstood
Yeah.
it. I'm sorry for that.
Yeah, no, cabs are customer, where the customer, typically what you often get is your advisory boards get ultimately hijacked by your prime customers long term. So your biggest
but when
customer.
you go into design and UX design and you do like that, and it's then you are, I think, more on the number ones and number twos here than that client engagement is now.
Yep.
Just taking off my driver hat for a moment and thinking about being a Wardley person who talks about Wardley things. One of the things that's tricky about this is that it depends on which context the product is in. It depends which approach is going to be better. And so if you are dealing with something that nobody has ever seen before, well, then the customers don't know what they want. And so the extent to which they can help you in a advisory board sense is not at all.
Nobody wants this one.
However, right. And as Geir points out as well, like, we want a faster horse. Of course, they're going to ask for more of what already exists, or a different tweak to what already exists. And that's not how completely novel stuff happens, unless it emerges from things that they're doing that you're just not aware of.
Yeah, I mean, typically we underestimate that clients have enormous emergent.
Exactly, but they will ask for the wrong things. That's the trick.
Sure.
And if you look at the needs at the very top, so gambles versus decent bets versus user demands versus costs of doing business, there are all sorts of different ways of engaging with clients, from ethnography and just observing what they do, to directly asking them what they want, and that they'll demand stuff. Give this to me. Why aren't you giving this to me already? Why won't you put the button in the form in the right place? I just want it to be blue, whatever, right? And yeah, so that's an excellent point. Client advisory boards, definitely one of the potential ways that client engagement could work. There are other ways. Okay, sorry, I'm taking over for Andreas. Sorry, man.
No, I just wanted to say I don't know if we're running out of time, how much time we have actually. So
Would we like
ask
to
you
save some time for facilitation questions or just general Wardley questions? How much more do we have? 15 minutes?
I think we set it up to half an hour, another half an hour.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, to me so far it looks good. The only thing, maybe user feedback, we could tackle that, but yeah, maybe feel free to switch hats for the rest.
Okay, so now I'm going to do something really disruptive. I'm going to ask someone else to play the navigator role. And we're going to make a new map, a completely new map from scratch based on what we learned. We're going to stick with the same user and the same need, but we're going to maybe use different capabilities, different things like that. And we'll run through this real quick. And maybe what I'll do is I'll take on the navigator role again, just to sort of help us sort of see the process play out. Would someone else like to be a driver?
Yeah, sure. I can do it, the driver.
Yeah, thank you. So what I'm going to do is down below, I'm just going to copy and paste and copy and paste. And we've got everything down here. Okay. So could you add the CEO again, or the C-level person? And then pick one of the needs that we decided. Would you like to focus on new and better products or improved existing products?
New and better.
New and better. Okay. So Andreas, if you could put new and better down. Excellent. Okay. So now we have a whole menu full of capabilities up top that we considered before. And I want to take the first three. We're only going to do three just to keep things small and tight. 3 capabilities that we've either discussed already or that we haven't discussed yet that are necessary to help us produce the introduction of new and better products. What are 3 capabilities that help us introduce new and better products for C-suites?
Prototyping.
Prototyping. We haven't heard that one before.
Use a Kano modeling workshop.
Mm-hmm.
Could you say that again? Use
the Kano model to get
Oh,
ideas
yeah.
for the new product.
Kano.
Like this?
Kano. So
Okay, no.
Kilo Alpha November Lima. Yeah.
So there's I just pasted the image in there. Okay, and one more.
Value stream mapping.
Works for me. Boom. Value stream mapping. And is that customer value stream mapping?
Yeah, of course. I'm sorry.
Okay,
That's assumption. Everything's customer.
Of course. Okay.
Sorry. No, you're right. It should have been.
No, I'm not. We're good. It's all good. Okay, so okay. Already Andreas is making the connections. I love it. Excellent. Okay, I'm gonna throw a monkey in, throw a wrench into the system, throw a monkey wrench. I don't know. One of those, whichever turn of phrase.
Throw a monkey into a wrench.
There we go. Yeah. So let's go one level deeper in this value chain. So we've already got the relationships here. What's one thing that one of these capabilities depends on? Let's go deeper.
UX.
UX.
You need to know your customer.
Yeah, you have to know your customer.
Okay, so let's one at a time. So what depends on UX? Which of these capabilities? Is it prototyping?
I'm not sure it does.
Can we say customer awareness?
Instead
or know
of
your
UX?
customer?
No,
I think all 3 depend on the knowledge of customer, because you have to shape UX in case you have impaired persons at the customers, or you have to know if you can train them or they are random users.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a customer flow of value. You have to understand their flow of value.
Okay, so did I hear correctly that prototyping using the Kana model and value stream mapping depends on knowing your customer? Is that right? Or did I get confused?
Oh, it's right.
That's right.
And I would put UX in the line too.
Okay. So Andreas, I think know your customer is going down here.
On the bottom.
I
So
think
like
it's the
this?
other way around.
Oh,
Because
okay.
the dependencies go downwards.
And like we've got that sentence again, so from top to bottom. The C-suite needs to introduce new and better products. New and better products needs customer value stream mapping. Customer value stream mapping needs knowing your customer. Excellent.
UX goes here, right? Also.
I don't hear any
When I
objections.
suggested it, I would put it one level down. So I think UX also depends on knowing your customer, but prototyping also depends on UX. So I would place UX below prototyping, but above know your customer.
Like this.
Yes, and then add a link. Yeah, perfect. That's what I had in
Awesome.
mind. But I'm very open to objections.
Okay,
That's
lovely.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move this over to the Wardley map. So you can copy the whole thing over, or you can move it, whatever you want to do.
Oh, to the Wardley map directly.
Yeah, we already skipped the value chain step. Is like we already did it in place, and that's totally fine. Okay, introducing new and better products. We already made the decision about this, that it's in Genesis in stage 1. Is that right?
Mhm.
Because we did that on our last map. And so we're kind of like using the knowledge that we discovered. And we could have more discussions, of course, to refine that further. Okay, let's do the voting thing again. So stage 1, 2, 3, or 4 for prototyping. I'm going to ask you to put your vote in chat. I'll just type it out here. Prototyping. Stage 1, 2, 3, or 4 on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3, go. We have a perfect distribution of 1s, 2s, and 3s.
Dennis, please.
Excellent. Okay. So since we have a little bit of time, I want to hear from someone who put 1. So either Halvor or Kansel, could you share why you said that it was a 1?
Go ahead.
It's a prototype. It shouldn't work the first time.
Okay, excellent. Is it a prototype or is it the activity of prototyping? It's an important distinction. I don't know if we've made that call yet.
It says prototyping.
Ooh. Okay.
I assume the latter, yes. So it's the act of prototyping.
Okay.
I assumed that it was a prototype. That's why I put a 1.
Got it.
Yeah, also because you expected.
Yeah, I was also thinking prototype, but it says prototype.
Yeah. Andreas, could you add like prototype product as a capability on the board and put it in Genesis? And that way we just made an important discovery, right? That there was something missing. Prototypes themselves. And does prototype product depend on prototyping? Is that the right way to look at that? No?
Yeah.
Yes.
No, yes?
I think it needs to, terminologically, I mean, semantically. If it's a prototype, it must be part of a
I'm not sure
practice.
really. I mean, there's a type of prototyping. You know, people know how to prototype. This is something that's already there. You just need to get the expertise how to prototype. And the act of prototyping is for me nothing really new in that case. You just need to learn it. But
Oh, yeah.
the thing you produce, the prototype itself, you have no clue on that.
Yeah, I was asking about relationships, not necessarily position yet. Sorry, I wasn't clear. So does the prototype product itself depend on prototyping? Does it depend on? Yes?
I think it does, because I think it depends on how you prototype. If you're prototyping with the client, which is the most intimate version of it, or are you prototyping in the black box, which is the other end of the spectrum? Because where you want to be on that spectrum changes everything about how you approach this.
Okay. So Andreas, could you add a relationship from prototype product to prototyping? I think the inverse way around again. It's from here down. Oh, now I'm messing you up even further, my friend. I'm so sorry. Could you move prototype product up and then draw a relationship
like this?
Exactly. I think that's right. Is that, anyone have any disagreement? Okay, and then to Consul's point, the prototype itself is in stage one, and you were right. Prototyping is something you just have to learn. It already exists, so we can move it over to the right.
Yeah.
Isn't here that we have a bit of a conflict of visibility in the value chain, and now this dependence between actually a prototype product is dependent on prototyping, but the visibility is the other way around, isn't it?
Oh yeah. So who here knows what Andres is talking about with visibility? Is that familiar? Okay. So sometimes you've seen Wardley maps where the left side of the axis, the y-axis, has visible at the top and invisible at the bottom. And here's the dirty secret. Visibility doesn't exist. It's a fake axis. It was invented by Simon just as a thing to make executives comfortable, because then a Wardley map looks like a chart. And so the truth of the matter is that visibility is a function of the relationships and how many jumps from the user to the underlying thing. So it's not about position vertically, it's about how many jumps there are on the relationships. And then to make this even more complicated, because you get to decide how to draw, like which parts of the system to talk about, you might have an arbitrary, basically prototyping could be really, really big, and the prototype itself could be really, really small. And so the hop from one to the next might not make any difference really in terms of visibility. Anyways, all that to say, don't worry about visibility so much. Just worry about the relationships. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, so
okay, then it looks fine, doesn't it? Kind of prototype product depends on prototyping, and prototyping itself requires UX and that you know your customer.
Yeah. I think we could move prototyping further to the right though, because it's an established practice, but it's okay with this as well.
Okay.
Well, but it depends on the type of prototyping. Once again, right?
Ooh, that's a very good point. So what are the types of prototyping?
Well, like I said, there's one that is this spectrum of the degree of engagement you have with your customers.
What's the words? Like, let's just find words for it.
So
what do you call it?
So customer-driven prototyping.
Excellent. Okay. So let's get customer-driven prototyping on the map.
And that's like one extreme. And then the other extreme would be black box prototyping, where you're just, it's inside, point of view.
Okay, I'm going to ask you some questions about that in a second, but I want to give Andreas a chance to catch up. So we've got customer-driven prototyping, and then the other one was black box prototyping?
Yep.
Okay. Does everyone know what customer-driven prototyping means? Or do we need some, okay, so we do. Where should we place customer-driven prototyping?
A custom built?
I mean, that's one way to view it. It's another way to view it as around the client engagement, right? I mean, so, you know, so the custom build is the product engineering point of view of it, which is right. That's not wrong typically, but the customer centric view of it is that you're getting at least a customer's deepest understanding of its value, right? And the more of those data points you can collect, the likelihood of the more accurate rendition of the product that you'll have developed.
Okay, so it sounds like there's the work itself of doing customer-driven prototyping, and then there's something else that you're getting at there. I'm trying to, like, it's not the work, it's expectation setting or gathering.
Yeah, I mean, so it's, oh, go ahead. Somebody else was saying something.
I just want to say that it's the outcome of the prototyping. The feedback you get from the customers while you are prototyping is the outcome you would put into your product, into your prototyped product.
Excellent.
Some kind of discovery.
Yeah, it's
like user needs discovery.
Yeah, it's the use discovery. I mean, like the simplest example of this has always been surgical instruments. So nobody makes a black box final surgical instrument. What they do is they make molds, kind of like cars, and then they present them to a pile of, you know, experts, right? Whatever it is, cardiothoracic, neuro, whatever, orthopedic. And then they say, well, this is too big. This is too weird. Like, it's going to get in the way. Do you know about the XYZ? And then they
So
go.
what should we write down, Andreas?
So it's like, is it know your customer, or are you basically talking about something else?
It's really taking prototypes and making them emergent is really the key here.
Well, I heard user feedback earlier as the thing that comes out of customer-driven prototyping. So should we add that to the map?
Or user emergent. I don't know if that's too fancy of a word or phrase. Because your goal ultimately in the discovery is creating the emergent experience with the customer where they get the light bulb going off.
Okay. And is that something above customer-driven prototyping, like user emergent feedback depends on customer-driven prototyping?
Yeah, it has to. I don't know any other way you could do that unless you hired all these expensive people to work for you.
Well, yeah, we're just trying to figure out where to put it. So, okay. Excellent. Yep. Andreas, draw the relationship. Excellent. Okay. And were we putting user emergent feedback in stage 3 in product? Is that right? Because that's the expectation conversation we just had.
I mean, in this map, yeah, I would also say it should be part of vision, actually, in some ways too.
Oh, yeah. Some interesting tie-ins there. Cool.
Yeah. Because long term, your vision should be some percentage of a collection of these over time, right?
That makes a lot of sense. And where did we put vision? Well, we had quite a discussion about vision, didn't we? Yes. It goes everywhere. Excellent. So everyone, you're starting to see how, like, on this iteration 2 draft, like we could have, for example, worked on the same map and added parts or removed parts and moved things around until that map was right. But sometimes it's easier just to throw the map away and come back again, because once we've made the first map, we start to know what we care about. And like we've noticed that we like to talk about new and better products instead of improving existing products, at least for this discussion at first. And we've noticed that we like to talk about prototyping as like a thing that was missing from the first map, but it's opened up this whole new world of things to explore. And so like what stuff should you map depends on where the value is for the work that you're doing. Yeah, go ahead, Gare.
Yeah, it's a facilitation question. And when you want to discard the prior map in order to start afresh, but with the insight you've gained, I have had historically some inertia, some resistance to wanting to throw things away because they're afraid of losing the insights. So how do you usually address that?
That's a great question. And I think maybe this is a good time to maybe switch away from doing the map itself and switching to maybe some Q&A. So I have all your wonderful faces on my screen, so I can see you. Just wave if you need if you have a question. But to answer that question, one of the tricks that I stole from Jay Bloom and Kat Swattel is the very first thing that you do with a group. When you teach them to map, the first thing you do is you have them throw the map away right away. So obviously that means you have to make making the map easy and straightforward. And I don't know how many of you have seen this video. I'm going to put a link to it in the chat. It's a video called the easiest way to do Wardley mapping. It's on YouTube. I threw that in chat. This is my like shortest path to value method that an individual person can follow and that you as a facilitator can walk people through. And what you have to do is be very, very careful to make sure that they limit how much they bite off the problem, and you have to time box them. But you can basically push people through this process in about 15 to 20 minutes. And that covers like the literacy part of how Wardley mapping basically works. And then immediately after that, you say, okay, throw it away. And so I'll have them write with like pencil and paper on their desk while we're on a Zoom call and say, do all that whole thing. And then now throw it away. You've got the basic mechanics. Now let's come together and work on something else, or let's work on the next iteration or whatever. But the point is to get them in the habit of not committing to making the perfect map, but just get used to the act of mapping. It's a muscle they have to exercise. When you're doing push-ups to build muscle strength, you don't overcommit to that one push-up and doing the one perfect push-up, right? You do your best, and then you do it again the next day or the next week or whenever. And so it's about building up that practice and habit.
Yeah.
Does that help?
I already thought maybe put some slight coffee stains in the background of the Wardley map, right? To make it more like trash, like Kat says. So it's easier to throw it away because in Miro, everything looks so perfect, and
that's a really good
touch it, but
really good point.
Maybe not too obvious, but just some kind of trashy feeling, trashy touch to it.
There's another tool that I really like using. I'll just share my screen briefly, called Excalidra. And Excalidra is lovely because it has this very like sketchy look to it, and yet it's also like pretty easy to do drawing like this. So yeah, like you've got your Wardley maps and you got your lines and all this kind of fun stuff, but then the text itself has a pretty sketchy feel to it, just like that. And I love this especially because then you can like, of course this is a piece of garbage. It's an unfinished idea. And actually Chris Matz gave a talk at Lean Agile Scotland a long time ago. I forget what it was called, but basically he says one of the best things you can do is you can keep things sketchy, like use index cards, use messy writing on your slides and things like that, just so people don't feel like you have this perfect polished idea that it cannot be improved. Like, how can we help people realize that everything's a work in progress?
I used a survey at once.
Awesome.
And I saved that because I thought it was a fun way to do it. We did it in the lunch. So that was the only thing we have to write on. So that was a good thing.
Awesome. Other questions about facilitation? I mean, we covered a lot of different approaches. Like we covered the mob mapping approach, the ensemble mapping, which I didn't do the greatest job of adhering to all the strict rules and so on. You can do a much better job at that than I will. Having roles helps a lot. The other things that you can do are set time boxes for discussion. And at the end of the time box, just do a quick vote. Thumbs up, thumbs down. Do we like what we're learning right now, or do we want to move on to something else? Because there's no particular insight that you need to get from a Wardley map. You just need to learn something. And the measure of how good that learning is whether or not it's something that you can put into action.
Yeah, regarding facilitation, I was a little bit lost in the prompts, for example, today.
Okay.
And I can imagine in a real example where people really want to get the greatest outcome out of this Wardley Mapping workshop, for example, I can imagine that there will be never-ending discussions at some point.
Yes, yeah.
But again, time boxing, yes. But at the end, it's about the discussions you have.
Very true.
So it's could be difficult to decide when to interrupt, when to stop, when to say, let's move on. This is the first feeling I have, but it's the first Wardley Mapping facilitation I just experienced today. So
maybe it's because
exactly
we missed
right.
kind of the decision part. Did we get to decisions?
We didn't really, and
leadership.
I think to your original point, Andreas, like there's not very much common context here. Like we're not working on a particular problem. And one of the first things that I always do is I tend to make sure that we have a common problem to work on. And it's just hard in a meetup group to do that kind of thing. I think we did the best we could do with just picking a topic that was generally interesting. What I would say, Consul, is that one of the tricks that I play for that is that I have people map individually and then share their maps with each other in a separate round. And so what that leads to is a quick process of mapping where every individual person is making their own map. We get through the process, we walk them through it, handhold them the whole way. And when it comes to the opportunity prompts, what I do is I literally say, okay, treat this like a meditative practice. Pick one part of the map, rest your attention on it. So let's say start with the user need. Okay, introducing new and better products. What's that like? Okay, we put it in stage 2, so or stage 1, so it's probably really uncertain, messy. Okay, stay with it. And now go one by one through the opportunity prompts and ask yourself, okay, is there a possibility to reduce bias here? Yes or no? No? Okay, move on. Is there something that I need to learn about using appropriate methods here? Yes? No? Okay, move on. And just go one by one through that. I teach them that basic algorithm for doing this kind of engagement. And then I put 5 minutes or even sometimes 15 minutes of silence. And so the one person works on their one map in silence, thinking through whether or not there are opportunities, and they note them down. And then once they have those opportunities noted down, depending on whether or not people are mapping the same thing, I'll put them in groups and have them, if they're mapping the same thing, then I'll put them in groups in order to compare and contrast. If they aren't mapping the same thing, what I'll do is put them in coach versus client roles. So the person who makes the map is the client and needs advice or needs someone to ask good questions. And the coaches are going to ask good questions like, what is that? What else does it depend on? What's missing? Is it really in stage 4? And so on. And so basically the coaches will hold the space for the client to do a little bit of self-introspecting work, make some notes of what they changed and move on. So there's lots of like ways to do divergence and convergence. Mob mapping is not the only way. I do like small groups as an additional way to build off of individual maps.
And another thing I realized that depending on how many elements you have on the map, it can get messy probably. And yes. I only saw that in a virtual environment right till now in digitalized way. I don't know even how it could work in a physical environment. So works perfectly in a virtual environment, definitely.
It depends on how much space you have, but my recommendation for, especially for people who are new to the practice, is have an upper limit of how many sticky notes are allowed on the map. And that's because we're not trying to create the perfect model. And in fact, as you iterate and iterate, you'll realize that you're going to slice reality into different ways. You can take the world apart and put it in, like, I could represent it from the standpoint of one person in the, like a product manager, and see how they see the world. And then I could choose a different perspective and get a completely different way of cutting things apart because I care about different things. And so I think the idea of getting in the habit of mapping and treating the maps as disposable allows you to be more willing to try those different perspectives out. And setting an upper limit of how many things can be on the map prevents it from getting too messy, because we want to get all the way through the process from start to finish, getting all the way to those opportunity prompts. Or if you want to get really, really intense with it, going and looking at Simon Wardley's tables that he has in his book. That's just what the prompts are from. They're just simplified versions of those tables. Or it's a selection from them. But yeah, setting an upper limit. Now, there is a world where the map isn't disposable. And that's when people are starting to converge on a common model for how the situation looks. And so if you're modeling a market and the market is changing very slowly, like changes happen maybe once every 6 months or once every couple months, then you might make and keep a map around for that long. Because like you all can finally agree on what the way things look is.
Yeah, thanks, Ben. Yeah,
great questions.
I don't know if there are other questions. I have one other, but I will wait for the others to come forward.
Yeah, we have a hand raised.
I think it might have been from before.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought I thought I'd taken it down, but I do have a question. It's related to the topic that you said at the end, when you're talking about convergence. So a scenario for this, you have been describing up till now a setting where you would, what I would tend to call a mapping dojo, where you meet in order to practice mapping. Okay. But if you are in a setting where the expected end result is a map that expresses some kind of shared understanding in a workshop, for example. So where the audience is not there to learn, they're there to, well, they have to learn, of course, but the main goal is that you will have some kind of output and some kind of outcome. So the question is, how many maps should we throw away, and how do you detect that they're about to converge and that you should start to finalize the map, and where you want to focus on the conversation rather than the map? Because I'm assuming there will be a dialectic between those two.
That's a really good question. And I definitely have a bias here, and it's very different than Simon's. So just to be clear, like the way Simon would do something like that is he would say, we're going to get everybody into a room and we're going to spend the next 2 days, potentially the next week, making the map and discussing about the map. And so that's his approach. And it is very like messy, like everyone gets in a room and we hash it out and we're working on the same map the whole time. And at the end, we've negotiated about what that map is, and we've had discussions, and hopefully we have some actions as a result of that. My approach is maybe a little bit more fuzzy, because I believe that humans already know generally what needs to be done. They just need a little bit more information and a little bit more common ground in order to make those decisions better. And I think that the map is what it's kind of like the setting, the set pieces on a play, you're going to watch like a dramatic play of some kind, and we need some props to tell the story. And so what we're going to do is we're going to sit together, we're going to make some props that help us tell the right kinds of stories. And at the end of the day, just by having the experience of discussing and having to negotiate about the meaning, it doesn't matter if we come out of it with the map or not, in my opinion. What matters is that we've had the chance to actually overlap a little bit, share some experiences, and now we come out of that meeting as different people. We literally know things differently. And maybe that's not as satisfying for some. Maybe people want the map as a deliverable, and that's fine. Like to me, that's like something to fight with a client over, about whether or not that's needed. My thought is the measure of value in this process is whether or not the actions you take are different, and whether or not that they are resulting in higher quality outcomes. That's the only thing that matters to me. So that's an unsatisfying answer. There are lots of ways that you could, I'm sure, like, given this amount of time, you could say, we're going to spend the morning diverging, we're going to spend the afternoon converging, and then we're going to spend the next day deciding what to do based on what we found. It's all about the time box. How much time do you have? Is this a one-time thing, or will you be able to engage continuously over a series of months? It's a whole different ball game.
And probably you will look at it at any time again, like in an iterative way, that you take some actions, and after you took the actions, that you go back to your map and then review it again, probably, right? Yeah. So it's a living thing actually then.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
I'd say it has one really positive outcome, amongst others, of course. It's like in other collaborative modeling approaches, where you visualize kind of a model. It's this psychological aspect that you kind of do not talk against each other, but kind of your enemy is there on the wall, on the map. And you can point at, no, this is wrong. And you're not kind of having arguments against each other, but together work on kind of the map. And this fosters conversation. And whatever happened, you'll leave the workshop with a better shared understanding of everyone else.
Yeah.
And it also gives...
Oh, sorry.
I was just going to reflect something on what Andreas said, and is that it gives you a better chance of being able to disagree, but do so in a constructive manner.
Yeah.
I really like it.
Yeah.
I just wanted to call it. It looks like Katya did a graphic recording of the session, and we'll share it. I guess we'll find you on LinkedIn, Katya.
Yeah, it would be great to have that. Maybe it's a better.
Yes, I will share it there, and I could give you the profile link so it's easier for you.
Cool, excellent. And Consul, were you going to say something earlier?
Yes, the last question that bothers me is I realized when we were mapping, there were different kind of items. Some were like an act, some were like an output or an outcome. Do you pay attention to these kind of different items when you're mapping?
That's a really good point. I have this like algorithm in the back of my head, and I've written it out a couple times about what you do once you made your first iteration. And there are lots of moves that you can make as a map maker, right? I don't mean strategy moves. I mean literally like how you change the map to get a better understanding. And like there are all sorts of moves like adding things to the map, removing things from the map, making them bigger. So like abstracting away detail and just saying, okay, all of that fits into this one bucket and we're just going to call that and put it there, or getting more granular and exploding things and getting into more details. The other thing that you can do is enrich the map by adding a typology. And you're exactly right. Like there are different types of things on the map. Simon proposes a basic set of things. He says that the different types of components are activities, so what you do, practices, how you do it, data, how you measure it, and then knowledge, how you know it. And that's one kind of typology. But the truth is there could be many others. I've used like cost of change before, where yes, we have things on the map and they're positioned according to evolution, but like the red things are really, really hard for us to change. And the green things are really easy for us to change and so on. I like the idea of doing outputs, outcomes, and impacts as well, because what you might find is that maybe impacts should all be on one map and maybe outputs should be on a different map, or maybe you should intermingle them depending on what kind of conversations you're hoping to have. Very high level impact based maps will probably lead to different kinds of conversations than very tactical maps where they're intermingled or what have you. Honestly, like you could make all sorts of decisions like that and try all sorts of stuff. And again, like the only thing that I care about is whether you're coming out the other end with high quality action.
Yeah, that's the point. Me as an OKR coach, I just try to bridge these two right now.
Yeah.
The knowledge you get from the mapping to decide on which actions you will work now, and to be outcome oriented, to map it with the map indeed. Then at the end,
Yeah.
your OKRs with the Wardley maps. Then, yeah.
And with evolution in particular, the way you write OKRs will be different, because if something's in Genesis, like the only way you can measure progress is by how much time and effort someone put into it, how much material they used, because success is not guaranteed. Like we tried 1,000 things and only one of them sort of worked. Whereas
good point.
Yeah.
if you're working on like OKRs for power generation, it's like, well, we increased the efficiency of power generation by 0.1 kilowatt hour per generator or something like that, and that's a big win or something. Like, I don't know, I probably got that all wrong.
Yeah, cool. Thank you very much.
Yeah, it was great questions, everyone, and I realize I'm probably way over time now, but I'm having so much fun with you all, so thanks for having me.
Thank you so much, Ben.
Oh, right, I should do the thing where I'm a little bit self-promotional.
Maybe one question. Didn't you have a kind of outcome frame? Did you want to have a look at that, or is that not too important?
I'm sorry, I'm not sure. I need to eat lunch and I forgot to eat lunch, so my brain is slowing down.
The wrap-up frame in Miro.
Oh, right. Well, I was going to give people the opportunity to maybe share a couple of the big highlights that they might have taken away from today. And you're welcome to do that. And so up in the top right-hand corner of the Wardley map, there's a little wrap-up section. What's something that you took away from today? What's a highlight? Something maybe that you'll use in your work?
Throw them away fast.
Oh, I love it. Yeah. I forgot. I'll also put my email in here.
And restrictions when you facilitate, or constraints that you keep it tight. I think that we have tried here before also that it was actually the same mapping there. We tried to do Agile transformation. That's really big.
Yeah, it gets really big really fast. And the choice that I've made in facilitation is to optimize for completing the process, not for getting complete understanding of the whole situation. Because I think we can digest little chunks of the situation at a time. We can bite off a little bit at a time and still get benefits from that. Also, it just takes way too much work to do it all at once. I'm just like, we need to make it small, get people wins right away.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, thank you all for coming to this. And if you have questions, I will respond to anyone who has questions and emails me. You can find me on Twitter at HiredThought. I'm also available by email, ben@hiredthought.com. Visit learnwardleymapping.com if you want some resources for mapping and so on.
And you also have this live streaming, Ben?
I have been doing some live streaming lately. We do events and things like that. I need to find someone for this week. So if anyone wants to make a map with me on a live stream, just let me know. And I'll do it with you tomorrow, whatever time that you can make. We'll run that. And yeah, it's just a lot of fun making maps with people. So we have a workshop coming up that's a more intense, like 3.5 hour experience. That's coming up on April 21st. I think we limit it to be pretty small scale. So that's also available if you're interested in that. All the events are on learnwardleymapping.com too. So keep an eye there if you want to find out when we're doing stuff.
Thank you so much, Ben. It was a
Thank
great
you.
All right.
I'm so grateful.
It was amazing. Thank you.
Thank you all for coming.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.